So yeah, I remember. I can tell you what I remember. I just, as a business person, I know, and being a business coach, one thing I never wanted to come to my clients with is not fresh business for myself. Like people, especially people look like you and me, are gonna be like, so what are you doing? You tell me about my business. What you doing?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's a real thing. And a lot of times we live in this la-la land, but we got to actually be real. Like, people are going to try you and going to be like, hey, okay, yeah, you wrote 5 books, but you wrote 5 books 50 years ago. What do you know about writing books now? What do you know about being published now? You're trying to get me published. You're telling me what to do. And so the validity and the integrity of that portion of the business portion, I definitely wanted that for you, because I knew you knew what you were talking about. But I also know you had a story, and by that time I was 3 books in. And I'm like, yeah, you got a lot to talk about. As I'm understanding the nuances of publishing now, like, you got a lot to tell. So the process, once you finally said, yes, I'm going to go ahead and do it, like, what was that process like for you internally and externally?
I went kicking and screaming. No, once I got started with it, I think I was still trying to tell the old story. Like, I was still trying to come into the space of, oh my gosh, I'm repeating some of the same things that people already have known about me. I just kept trying to pull in my past. And so that was the initial struggle, was, no, Tamika, you have to get out of that. There's something else different here where you don't have to utilize that. You don't need to do that anymore. And so that was the beginning part of it. And once I got into it, Jay, and started working on it and writing it and really digging deep into who I was and growing as a business owner, it was really difficult. And of course, I was crying like, y'all, snotting, crying, big crocodile tears, crying, because I'm like, oh my God, but it was such a release for me to be able to do that. So my process was, just as I tell my clients, is that you really have to lean into the emotion when you're actually putting pen to paper. You have to lean into the story that you're telling, so that what comes out at the end of it is the story that really needs to be told, because it wasn't about me. As far as writing the book, it was really for the women that's connected to me, the women that's going to follow me, who also have a desire to start their own business. So I wanted to make sure that I did a good job for them as well.
But also, what I learned, and I want you to talk about this, is that you had another testimony in this book. It's like you felt like your testimony of old was Trump, the one that you had to become an entrepreneur, because that was past. You was past that old testimony.
Yeah.
So talk about when you finally started digging into your outline and everything and putting this book out, like, getting the book done, the testimonies that you had to talk about in here, because it was definitely enough.
Yeah, it was. And it was really interesting, though. Once I started peeling back the layers of my business experience, I was like, okay, girl, yeah. Because there were certain things that I forgot about, certain memories that I suppressed, right? Certain memories that I suppressed, things that I've never talked about publicly, I put in Ink Pen Diva. And so it was, but that was just the process of really helping me see that there is something more in you. And I think that that's a lesson for the people that's listening and watching, is that you have to remember that you're never just going to be one. Like, you're not just one part. We are multifaceted beings, and we have to know and understand that, especially as we grow throughout our lives. And so it's the same thing when it comes to our stories. You've already lived certain experiences. There's no need to, as my mama would say, reopen old wounds. You don't have to do that anymore. You can stay in the present with where you are and tell that story, and then realize that it's enough. Like, it doesn't have to be a trauma story. It doesn't have to be an abusive story. It doesn't have to be a painful story. What you have right now in the present, even when things are really, really good, is enough, because it still can encourage somebody.